My extended family of, cousins and aunts and uncles in South Carolina would strip a hog like nobody's business and eat every single piece of it.
I remember the first time I saw chitlins and I thought, is it a bucket? Why is it in a bucket? Food doesn't
Yeah,
come in a
why
bucket.
is it in a bucket?
Chum comes in a
Who puts
bucket.
food like that in a bucket? Welcome to the very first episode of Monique and Friends, our stories unscripted. I'm Monique Hayward, and after years of thinking about launching a podcast, it's finally here. I'm beyond excited to bring you real, unfiltered conversations with the incredible people who've shaped my journey, friends, colleagues, mentors, and more. Through these stories, I hope you'll find inspiration, practical advice, and maybe even a few laughs. We'll talk about career pivots, personal growth, resilience, risk taking, and everything in between. Plus, stick around for AMA, Ask Monique Anything, where I answer your questions about business, careers, and life. To kick things off, I couldn't think of a better first guest than my best friend from childhood, Kevin Noble. We go way back to our days growing up together in Columbia, South Carolina, and we have been through it all. Today, we'll share stories of friendship and what it means to show up for each other. So sit back, relax, and join us for some memories, reflections, and plenty of laughs. Let's get into it. Hi there, Kevin Noble.
Hi, Monique.
I am so excited that you are the very first guest
I
on
was
my podcast. I just can't even
I'm
begin to tell you how excited I am.
a little nervous and extremely honored that you picked me as your first guest because out of all the people in your life,
Well, that's exactly why I picked you to be first, because of all the people in my life. I have so many amazing memories and so much that we have been through over the years that I think it's worth reflecting on, you and me, for this episode. What do you think?
well, again, considering our extraordinarily lengthy history and all that you've accomplished and all of my missteps and mishaps and misadventures, the fact that we've still been able to be connected in the way that we are is still amazing to me. Like there are so many people in
So, what?
the wayside, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, totally.
so
I
many
get it.
people that I have wanted to leave by the wayside, but you have never been one of those people.
Okay, great. I'm glad that you have thought enough of me to continue on the journey.
Because it's been a ride.
Yeah, it's definitely been a ride. So, why don't we start with telling people how you and I met? What is the memory that you have of how you and I met? Because I think it might be slightly different for you and for me, depending on, who's telling the story.
Oh God. Okay. I haven't thought about how we met in so long because it almost seems as if we've just known each other from inception. Um,
Right?
I mean, I just remember that god awful summer camp at USC
Yeah, the University of South Carolina.
where they had us out in the blazing southern heat. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we came together because we were in separate groups, but
Yes.
like when we would come together for the lunch periods, we gravitated towards each other because we talked like this,
Right.
and everybody else.
Right. We were these big city kids who descended upon Columbia, South Carolina from New York, and we were instantly outcasts.
Yeah, yeah, we were those kids that they used to say they couldn't understand us, while at the same time we were trying to figure out what they were saying. Needed an interpreter for those kids because I honestly had no idea what they were saying. It was I
Yeah, I
speak
remember that.
I speak two languages. bad English and bad Spanish. I don't speak bad Southern. Okay, not a thing.
Yeah, I do remember that. And you know what else I remember about that summer camp? In addition to it being blazing hot, I just remember also not being very happy to be there.
So, I felt like it was a punishment. Uh, I
Yeah, that's what I felt like. I felt like my mom was totally punishing me for some reason, and it's like you will be doomed to 8 hours a day for the next 2 weeks.
kept thinking because I've talked to my parents in the intervening years, and I said, I felt as if you just didn't know what to do with us, and Kenneth didn't get subjected to that camp. He got to stay with his
Right.
right,
Yeah.
or Sister Nola,
Yes.
mother. Um, so it was me, and there's 5 years age difference between us. So I don't know if they had a younger group. I don't remember at this point. I
I
remember.
don't think they did. I think that's
Yeah,
why, yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
So
you were 13 at the time and I was 12.
yes. So he was at
Yeah.
grandmother's house, but I got shuffled off to this pseudo concentration camp and admittedly, it wasn't the most awful experience. I mean, we did get to hang out on, which at the time was a state of the art gymnasium. So we got
Yeah.
to use their natatorium. That was a big word back then. Uh,
Yes, that was a big word back then.
we got to use their fitness facilities. And we got to, I guess, get out of our neighborhoods because Henley Holmes was not the place to be.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it was quite the experience. And how do you think that, you know, the summer camp and our coming together changed you in some way?
Well, we bonded over misery, number one, right? And out of that camaraderie that has lasted 30, 40 years.
Yes, 40 plus years, I think, right
Um,
now.
and in addition to, the quote unquote, it built character BS line, I think it just made you and I appreciate kind of what we missed from New York, and it made us appreciate what each of us could bring to the table as far as the way we communicated, our likes, our likes as far as music was concerned, our likes as far as reading was concerned, our likes because we were both, and I feel a little bad saying it, but we were both ahead of the curve as far as those kids were concerned. We had done and seen things that those.
Yeah, I think that we were a little more worldly than
Yeah,
kind of your typical 12 or 13-year-old kid in
yeah,
South Carolina, right? If we should say so ourselves, right? Not that we're trying to be elitist or anything about it. I mean, it's just we like to read. We like to know what was going on in the world. We were talking about politics and talking about music and entertainment and all this kind of stuff, right? Like that most people weren't even concerned with when they were 12 or 13
we
years
were the
old.
original Blur. We were the original
Say
Blur.
that again?
We were the original
Yeah,
Blurs.
right. We were the original Blerds. Yeah.
And when I look back on the people that I remember that were there with us, none of them, most of them aren't even alive, if I'm honest.
Yes, I know. Isn't it interesting how
Yeah,
we're in our mid 50s now
yeah,
and how many of those folks who came along with us in our childhood are not even here? I
yeah,
mean, it sort of gives you perspective about kind of your own mortality
yeah.
sometimes, right? Like, wow, how could they
Of
be gone
course,
so soon?
obviously, we were both athletic. I played
Yeah.
soccer and we played basketball. You know, I ran track.
Yeah.
We were already sort of on the path to being healthy. Parents didn't, what those people, parents were cooking. We ate.
Right. I know your mom was a lot like my mom when it came to fast food and things. Like what? McDonald's? No, I don't think so. We are having dinner at home. That's why we have food at home.
Yeah. Like, I got your McDonald's burger right here, smash. Yeah.
Yeah. Right here at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
Right. No, there's no argument.
But they also, I think, because with my parents being military, my dad being in the military, my mom being a military wife, we got out of the South very early. So kind of the habits that my parents had as far as their nutrition was went by the wayside because, my dad, became the vegetarian that he did. Remember the sun tea? Um,
Yes. Oh my gosh. Remember the sun tea out on the porch? We're like, Kevin, is your dad brewing tea out on the front porch?
but they didn't cook
See, your dad was like, your dad was so totally hippie and cool back
he,
before it was totally hippie and cool. Yeah.
But we weren't eating the hog maw, the chitlins, the
Oh
fried
gosh,
chicken
no.
every night, the fat back.
Yeah. I couldn't even be in the same room when chitlins were cooking. Oh, God, what a horrible. I mean, you just brought back a really bad memory for me. Thank you very much there, Kevin.
That's what I'm here for. That's what I do.
Yeah, that's what you're here for. Yeah, no, my extended family of, cousins and aunts and uncles in South Carolina, man, they would strip a hog like nobody's business and eat every single piece of it.
I remember the first time I saw chitlins and I thought, is it a bucket? Why is it in a bucket? Food doesn't come in a
Why is it in a bucket?
chum comes in
Who
a bucket.
puts food like that in a bucket? Who does this? Oh my gosh. Speaking of, southern memories. So do you remember when we first got to South Carolina, we were living in my great grandmother's house in that neighborhood called Frogtown.
Yeah.
Right? And we happened to be living on Hayward Street
Yeah.
of all things. And one of my earliest memories of being in that neighborhood was sitting on my great grandmother's, front porch and looking across the street at this little apartment complex of, a really small apartment complex, like, maybe, 2 or 3, it was like a duplex or a triplex, right? Something like that. But it was apartments. And they were directly across the street from the house. And there was a clothesline out on the, just right in front of the building.
Okay.
And I saw a woman come out with a chicken. And she put that chicken on the clothesline and proceeded to wring its neck and chop the head off. And the chicken starts flipping. And I was mortified. I looked at this. I was like, oh my God, what is happening right now?
Where are we? Yeah, I remember the first time my grandmother cooked chitlins. We had gone home for Christmas. Now, we left East Meadow, New York. It's Long Island, for those of you who don't know. We went home for Christmas to South Carolina. My grandmother lived in the projects, Henley Homes, right? And it's bleeding cold. Like one of the first years in South Carolina in decades that it had dropped below 30 degrees. And my grandmother was cooking chitlins. And my brother and I sat out on the porch because we refused to go in the house. And my grandmother told my mom, your children is sedity.
Your children are sedity. That's such a great Southern word, sedity.
I didn't know what it meant. Still, I get it now. But, if there's a dictionary definition of it, I don't know what it means. But I know it wasn't good. And I just remember my mom saying, we don't do that. They don't know about that. So, and my brother who had no filter just kept saying, the house stinks. The house stinks.
Nice. Oh my gosh. So let's fast forward a little bit because, we could talk forever about those early days, but let's talk about like how did you start your career? I think it's a really interesting path that you decided to take. When you were kind of in your late teens, early 20s, you tried multiple things.
Well,
right? Until you really found a groove.
So I think if we take it back, my original mindset was I wanted to go into the military. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I remember this.
Specifically, I wanted to be in the Air Force, and I was a mediocre student. I wasn't,
Why are you always in competition with me?
Competition. No, no,
Stop.
not
Stop
competition.
competing with me.
Yeah, it's not competition. But you know, I was in all the AP classes. I was in all the college prep classes. I was one of those kids who was too smart for his own good. You know, um, I might have been ahead of the class, but then I coasted, right? But um, when I decided that I wanted to be in the military, I was kind of gung ho about it, and then this happened.
Yeah.
So, and for people who don't know, keratoconus is a eye disease where your corneas are not round like the normal person, but they're conical, which creates a very high level of astigmatism and makes the corneas very thin and extremely brittle. And if you remember a certain cousin of mine who shall remain nameless, who were wrestling, and his fingernail actually poked me in the eye, which wound up ripping the cornea, which led to the multiple surgeries and the discovery of keratoconus in both eyes, which when I did my test for the military, disqualified me because of the vision issues, which led me kind of into a downward spiral, if you will, of what I now know was the beginnings of a depression.
Yeah.
So my career path and my mindset kind of changed because I couldn't do what I wanted to do and I didn't know anything else to do.
I remember when you went into the hospital
Oh yeah. Yeah.
for that surgery,
Yeah.
and I it's one of the hardest things that I think that I ever had to come to grips with, because you were my best friend. You're lying in the hospital, and I remember you had all of this apparatus, all of these things. I mean, so many people, nurses, doctors, etc. It's just, and there was little old you in the hospital bed,
Yeah.
and
And it
yeah,
was
I mean, just all hands on deck.
yeah.
And I was terrified for you. And I remember just crying uncontrollably
It was
while
a
you were there, and
trying
it
it
was
was
awful.
it was a hard time. I didn't deal with it well because I didn't know how to deal with it.
Well, yeah, you were young.
I didn't know how to deal with all of that. And the rules
Yeah.
that came along with a cornea transplant, I had to wear an eye patch. Those are formative years in high school where I had to wear an eye patch
Yes.
around
Yeah.
very unkind people. Uh,
Yes.
and it made school a lot more difficult, which is something else I never really discussed with people. It's something I had to carry, at that age where you're trying to dress well, you're trying to fit in with everybody, but you can't fit in because you got an eye patch on and you're not allowed to carry a backpack. You're not allowed to pick up anything over 5 pounds. You can't sneeze,
Yes.
can't blow your nose, you can't cough because the potential to blow the cornea out of your head is real.
Is too high. Yes,
So,
very real. Definitely.
so
Yeah. And this was also at a time when you were just dealing with your own identity, right? Like who you ultimately would become.
yes. So in addition to, struggling with my sexuality. So
Right.
I knew fairly early on I was on the other team, right? So
Yes.
um,
Yes. And I remember very clearly you being really scared to tell me that you were gay.
yes, yeah, because I didn't want to lose my best friend.
And then what did I tell you?
Like, okay, and what? Who cares?
Right? Who cares?
But it was this was the '80s. It was different.
It was the 80s. It was difficult. Absolutely.
It was very different, and I made a lot of uninformed decisions because it was the '80s, because I was trying to hide my sexuality, because I was basically a cyclops. There were a lot of
Right.
factors that went into how I navigated life. And,
You and I had this conversation a lot during those times in the late 80s, early 90s, and even stretching into the 2000s, because as I alluded to earlier, right, after you could not pursue a career in the military due to the issues with your eyesight, then you're down the path of several other things. And one that I thought was really interesting that I don't know anybody else who is in the space of, pursuing dance as, a way of escape like you did.
so I fell into personal training, right? I fell into the fitness life.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
quite by accident. When I ran away from South Carolina and moved to New York with a man that was 10 years older than me,
Yes.
I went to New York, no job, no money, no nothing. And I was just walking down the street in Kew Gardens one day and a Bally's was opening. And so
Yeah.
I went into this Bally's to fill out a application just to be the receptionist, right? And at that time, I was decently built. I was very compact. Um, I had great symmetry. I looked athletic, right? And so
You
like
were. You
I
still are.
was. Not now. I'm middle aged. No,
I was just thinking about that this morning. When I would watch my grandmother walk sometimes, I'm like, "Oh, why does my grandmother always look like something hurts when she walks?" Now I know why.
because it hurt. Everything hurts.
Because it did. Something's hurting.
I sneeze and there's a bulgy disc. Like what do you?
Yes. I,
The manager there like, hey, you work out, and me being quick thinking, yes. So you know how to use all the equipment, yes. So you could personal train, yes. Ta-da! All of a sudden, I'm about Jack LaLanne. It was under Balance. It was Jack LaLanne in Kew Gardens, Queens.
oh my gosh, Jack LaLanne.
So, so from there, I did go and I get, went the path of getting my certifications. Started out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it would be nice if you would actually get some certs.
Yeah. So I got my certification. I just went into the city, um, worked for New York Health and Rec Club, worked for New York Sports Club, met a guy, Rock, who shall remain nameless. Met a guy. We started dating. It was a very tumultuous relationship. Lots of things being thrown at each other, and ain't nothing like crazy love.
Yes, and
Yeah,
that was a little bit of a dark period. I don't remember that you and I were really in touch a lot because you had so much
it was a
turmoil and chaos.
yeah. And so because of that bad relationship with this guy, um, I went through this period of, you know what, done with dudes, going back to women. What's the best thing to do? Stay out of the gay clubs. Let's start going to the straight clubs. Um, you like Latin music? Let's start going to Latin Quarter, 96 in Broadway, Manhattan. I started going to Latin Quarter, and they used to do the free dance classes, right? So you would get there
Yes.
at like 8 p.m. There'd be a free salsa dance class, and then you get on the dance floor at night and you take everything you learned in this class and you throw it at some poor unwitting girl who's now wondering why you're, spinning her 400 times, and you've just been doing that same step for like 7, right? So I'm taking the free classes, and lo and behold, I start getting good, and I'm really like.
Yes.
I'm also a trainer for another gym, and one of my coworkers sees me in the studio because I'm practicing. I am 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. I'm in a mirror in an aerobic studio every day, and so my coworker looks at me and goes, "Hey man, what you doing?" I said, "I'm salsa on 2." He goes, "Nah, you're doing it backwards." He's like, "This is how you do it," and then he proceeds to start doing it. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "This is salsa." Like, huh? There's two competing types of salsa in New York.
Yeah.
And the school that I had started going to after I started getting good from the free lessons, I started going to, actual classes. I'm actually paying money to learn how to do this now. Um,
Yeah.
so But I noticed whenever I was going out, I could only dance with the people who took this class. But I saw that everybody else was doing something cool. Like everybody's timing was very different from the timing I was on. So I said, let me find out what this is about. I go to the class that my boy is going to, and I'm blown away by what these people are doing versus what I was doing with this other group. And I'm like, you know what? Let's throw everything that I have learned over the course of this year and put everything I've got into this. Meanwhile, I'm still hiding from gay life, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I actually started dating one of the girls that was in the class with me, right? But
Yeah.
I am full on into this other school of dance, and I start getting good, and I start making friends, and I start getting really good, and I start getting asked to join student groups and be in this performance and be in this parade and be in this event. And then all of a sudden, now I'm like on stages and
And traveling around the world even and competing
and
professionally. Like, wow.
this little and especially back then because I was Black American doing
Yeah.
this. Yeah, and
Right.
there weren't a lot of Black Americans in this. It wasn't our thing, so to speak.
Right. No, because we were entrenched in hip hop
Yeah,
in this era.
that era.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I went from 96 to probably 2005 not listening to English music.
And your Spanish got really good too.
And so, I continued personal training. I danced. My career in the fitness industry I went from a floor trainer to a personal trainer to a assistant fitness manager to a fitness manager to an assistant club manager to sales, right? And
Yeah.
but I was also incredibly irresponsible because I didn't know how to manage the two.
Yes.
The part
And
it was
I
it,
think this is where you and I reconnected.
yeah, you kind of reeled me in.
Yeah,
Um,
I had to reel you in a little bit. I remember distinctly having this conversation because I was full on into my own career and I was traveling a lot and I would find myself in New York City a lot. And so
yeah,
I would catch up with you whenever I came to town. And I remember us sitting down and I had this conversation with you. I said, Kevin, you have to stop living your life as if you're going to die tomorrow.
which which is a whole other. If you have me back, maybe we can get into that. But
Yeah.
I didn't see it
But
tomorrow.
just like everything, you have to be responsible about everything, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
your money, your relationships, your health, your wellness. You were not living as if you were going to be, you know, thinking about what
yeah.
life was going to be like in our 50s.
Yeah, yeah. Which I'm still kind of paying for to this moment, but I am better prepared now than I was even 5 years ago. Um,
Yeah. What was the biggest lesson you think you learned in all of that?
the doom and gloom that I had in mind, um, not seeing a future, just living for the actual day. Like I wasn't even living
Right.
for tomorrow. I was living for the day. If
Yes.
if
You were
I didn't
living for the day. Not
get
even, yeah, not even thinking that you were going to go to bed that night, right? Like living for that moment.
it. So I think, coming out of that now, yeah, like, okay, yeah. Um, but for people like you, my friend Spencer, my brother, Estelita Ward, Crumley,
Mm.
uh, the people who kind of made me, my parents, your mother, um, people who would like, hey, that metaphorical slap upside the head, making me adult when I didn't want to. you know, making me see that you are going to be here for the long haul and you need to act accordingly.
Yep.
So maybe the thing that I learned is being gay isn't the end of the world. It's okay. Because that was the biggest thing that has held me back in my life is my fear of being who I am and letting the world see who I am because I was so busy hiding the real me from everybody. The only person who knows the real me is you. You know things that, other people have no idea of. And everybody else has a different version of me. You know,
Yeah.
you're the only person that knows what it is. So I'm
Yeah. Well, I'm truly honored that we have such a close relationship that you trust me with that much of your life and the secrets, if you will, that
the book of secrets, and
um
it's big.
yeah, the book of secrets that we keep. But at the same time, we are your biggest fans and advocates and support.
There are times when I can hear, you know, according to what I'm up to, I can hear you, I can hear, my friend Spencer, and it's the angels on the shoulder going, "Come on, bro, really?"
Yeah, come on.
Yeah,
And then we can also feel when you decide you're going to pluck us off.
yeah.
And then you're down a path and it's like, okay, well, you go and find out. So I got one more thing for you before I let you run, because this has been such a delightful walk down memory lane and just sharing with the world
I'm gonna
one of my deepest friendships ever.
stop.
What is your plan for this year?
My plan for this year. All right,
Yeah, your plan for this year. Like, how are you going to make this a really good year?
Well, I mean, it's not the one day at a time situation, but it is kind of, hey, are we on the right path as far as savings is concerned? Like actually having some? Are we on the right
Yeah,
path?
like having some. Yeah, I mean, for the good people who are listening, you are in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Yes, 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 yes. Which is rapidly becoming no longer Miami's ugly little sister is what it's becoming. Um, Here on real estate are absolutely through the roof. I don't live in a hovel, but I'm not in the penthouse on the water, and still,
Yeah.
it's unobtainable. Like I'm lucky I got in when I did because this place now I wouldn't be able to. So the goal is to be able to continue to prosper not only financially but career wise, so that I can actually buy a place. Um, in Florida because I ain't leaving. I'm not going any place. I was already upset that it dropped to 54 degrees last week. That's not why I moved here. Okay?
Like, I didn't move here for 50 degrees.
I'm not about that life.
Oh, you're so thin skinned now.
Listen, I'm I'm 56. You get up in the morning and it's cold. Joints don't want to move. Joints are locked up. I own two jackets. Okay.
I know, right? You probably have to blow the dust off of your head so long.
Oh, and make sure I still fit in these things because I'm not shopping.
Yeah.
I'm not like tough it out, suck it up. But yeah, I need my 80 degrees back. We're not playing that.
Right. Well, that's my aspiration for you. Financial freedom,
Yes.
amazing success,
Yes.
great, amazing bliss and fantastic weather in Florida.
You know what? And I will, all of that other stuff can go by the wayside. Just give me the good weather. That's
Just give me the good weather.
just give me.
Well,
Yeah.
On that note, my dear, I love you with all my heart. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
I wish you nothing but success, especially with this podcast. I hope it takes off. I hope I didn't turn your listeners off. Is it listeners? Is viewers? For old, I don't know
It's
this.
going to be both. It's both. This is like, yeah, this is YouTube and it's also, audio. Hell yeah. We're not playing around. We're going all out.
Okay. All right. You should have told me how to pluck the grays out of the eyebrow.
That's hilarious. All righty, my dear. Have a wonderful day. And we will be talking again soon, of course. Now it's time for Ask Monique Anything. And here's my first question from Jeremy in Seattle, Washington. As AI becomes more pervasive, what is the way to stand out as a unique person with a learned skill set and expertise and ability to adapt faster than a large language model? Well, Jeremy, that is a great question. And thank you for submitting it. AI is evolving fast, and it's easy to wonder how we as professionals can stand out in this world where machines can automate pretty much anything. Here's the thing, though. There are certain skills that AI really just cannot replace. So how do you make sure that you stay ahead? I think the first thing to do is to remember that you are human. AI is great for crunching numbers, generating content, automating tasks. So you let it handle that stuff so that you can focus on the things that actually move the needle, like creativity, strategic thinking, communication, and influence. Those are the skills that really set us apart as professionals. The next thing I'll tell you, learn how to tell a great story. Your personal insights, your knowledge, your expertise, your decision making. There isn't an LLM on this planet that can compete with that. When you're in a meeting or presenting an idea, whether you're interviewing for a role, no matter what, you are going to be in a position where you can tell a great story that makes your impact clear and memorable. Maintain a growth mindset. AI definitely changes the game, and the best way that professionals embrace it is not to resist it. You're learning how to use it to your advantage. Adapt and experiment and look for ways that AI can enhance your skills, not replace them. And then the last thing I'll say is that you'll want to continue to work on building your own personal brand. Make sure that you are investing in your own expertise, your leadership, your credibility, and building trust, because AI, at the end of the day, is a tool. It is not a replacement for human ingenuity, creativity, and connection. That's a wrap for this first episode of Monique and Friends, Our Stories Unscripted. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Kevin as much as I did. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your network. And if you have a question for AMA Ask Monique Anything, send it my way. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, get your hustle on and step into your greatness. See you soon.